There's a kind of shame people don't talk about enough. Not shame from doing something terrible, but shame from slowly feeling unable to keep up with life. The shame of unanswered messages, the shame of dishes in the sink, the shame of canceled plans, the shame of struggling with things other people seem to do effortlessly. Work, cleaning, socializing, existing. And maybe the hardest part is people, in fact, most people, looking at you from the outside don't see survival. They see failure. Welcome to Out of Freeze. I'm Christopher Allcorn, and today I want to talk about the shame of not functioning. I think a lot of people are secretly carrying this, especially people dealing with trauma, grief, depression, anxiety, burnout, caregiving, loneliness. You start to feel disconnected from the version of yourself you thought you were supposed to become. And slowly, life begins piling up around you. Laundry, emails, bills, texts, appointments, responsibilities. Tiny things begin feeling enormous. And then the shame starts talking. You're lazy. You're weak. Everyone else can do this. What's wrong with you? And after a while, you start to believe it. One of the hardest things for me personally has been realizing how survival mode changes your relationship with everyday life. When your nervous system is overwhelmed long enough, even small decisions can feel exhausting. Not because you don't care, but because your body and mind are already carrying too much. I think people underestimate how exhausting emotional survival actually is. Grief is exhausting. Trauma is exhausting. Fear is exhausting. Loneliness, it's exhausting. Trying to appear okay while internally struggling, that's exhausting too. And yet we live in a culture that often measures worth by productivity. How much you accomplish, how organized you are, how motivated you seem. So, when you start struggling to function normally, shame moves in fast. I think shame thrives in silence because people don't usually post the moments where they're frozen. They post the clean apartment, the gym selfie, the promotion, the smiling dinner photo. I'm guilty of that too. Meanwhile, someone else is sitting alone, trying to figure out while brushing their teeth, feels emotionally overwhelming. And that gap creates isolation. You start feeling like everyone else received instructions for being human that you somehow missed. I know that feeling. And honestly, I think many people do. Far more than we realize. Something I've been learning slowly is that functioning is not always about motivation. Sometimes it's about safety. When the nervous system feels unsafe, overwhelmed, or emotionally flooded, the brain begins prioritizing survival over growth. And survival mode often looks very small. Staying inside, avoid stress, limit exposure, shut down, rest, hide. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means your system may be overloaded. And I wish more people understood that compassion matters more than the shame when someone is struggling. Because shame rarely creates movement. Usually, Shame creates paralysis. I also think there's a grief in realizing you can operate the way you used to. And when you can no longer do that, that's hard to admit. There are moments where you look at your life and think, I used to be more alive than this. And that thought hurts. But I'm beginning to understand something important. Healing does not begin with judging yourself for being frozen. Healing begins with reducing shame enough to move again. Tiny movement, not transformation overnight. Movement. One corner of the room, one phone call, one walk outside, one meal, one moment of honesty. Tiny movements, big change. I think people in freeze often wait to feel motivated before acting. But sometimes movement comes first. Not giant movement, just enough movement to remind yourself and your nervous system life still exists outside the freeze. And honestly, that takes courage. More courage than most people realize. If you're listening right now and you feel ashamed of where you are in life, I want you to hear this clearly. Your worth is not measured only by your productivity. You are not failing because survival has exhausted you. And struggling does not make you weak. It makes you human. There is no shame in slowly rebuilding yourself. Slowly is still movement. This has been Out of Freeze. The opposite of freeze is flow. Tiny movements, big change. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time, friends.